Shalom, shalom, everyone. Welcome to Shema Yisrael Erev Shabbat service. My name is Princess Tahila, and we're gonna start with our psalms. Hallelujah. Psalms 92, a psalms for the Shabbat day. It is a good thing to give thanks unto Yah and sing praise unto thy name, O Most High, to show forth thy loving kindness in the morning and thy faithfulness every night. Upon an instrument of 10 strings, upon the psaltery, upon a harp of solemn sound. For thou, O Yah, has made me glad through our works. I'll exult in the works of thy hand. O great are thy works, O Yah, thy thoughts are very deep. A British man knoweth not, neither doeth a fool understand this. When the wicked spring up as the grass, when all of the workers of iniquity do flourish, it is that they may be destroyed forever. But thou, O Yah, art O Most High forevermore. For lo thy enemies, O Yah, for lo thy enemies shall perish. For all the workers of iniquity shall be scattered. But my horn shall I exalt like the horn of the wild ox. I am anointed with fresh oil. My eye has seen the desire of thy enemies, and my ears should have heard the desire of the wicked that rise up against me. The righteous shall flourish like a palm tree. He shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Those that be planted in the house of Yah, they shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall still bring forth fruit in old age. They shall be fat and flourishing. To show Yah is upright, he is my rock, and there is no unrighteousness in him. Hallelujah. Psalms 125. They that trust in Yah are as Mount Zion, which cannot be moved but abide forever. As the mountains are round about Jerusalem, so Yah is round about his people, from this time forth and forever. For the rod of the wickedness shall not rest upon the lot of the righteous, that the righteous put forth not their hands unto iniquity. Do good, O Yah, unto those that be good, and to them that are upright in their hearts. But as for such as turn aside unto their crooked ways, Yah shall lead them forth with the workers of iniquity, but peace shall be upon Yisrael. Hallelujah. Deuteronomy 6:4. Hallelujah. Hear, O Israel, Yah our God, Yah is one. And thou shalt love thy Yah thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I commanded this day shall be in thy heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently of thy children, and not talk as though when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them upon a sign upon thy hands, and they has be the frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the doorposts of thy house and upon thy gates. And it shall be when Yah thy God shall bring thee into the land which he swore unto our fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov, to give thee great and goodly cities which thou didst not, houses full of all good things which thou fillest not, vineyards and olive trees which thou plantest not, and thou shalt be eaten and be full. Then beware lest thou forget Yah, who brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt fear Yah thy God and serve him, and swear by his name. Ye shall not go after the other gods and the gods of the people which are round about you, for Jehovah thy God is a jealous God amongst you. Lest the anger of Yah be kindled against thee, and destroy him for the face of the earth. Hallelujah. Can y'all see me? Can somebody type if they can see me or hear me? Okay. It's delayed, but did anybody say anything? It's just on this end, guys. It looks like it's either delayed and it's disappearing. I just want to see, just type if you can see me. It's up there. Okay. You see how it's delayed, but it still says live. Okay, you guys can hear me and see me. Okay. I'm just gonna keep going. If I disappear or something, just type that I'm gone. Okay. Shabbat shalom, everyone. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, all glory, and all thanks to the Most High, asking that He continue to guide, shield, and protect us, protect my family, protect this house as we go about our ways, as we joining the Shabbat right now, and keeping us all safe. Next, I want to give due respect to Chief Prince Sapor, the leader and founder of Shema Israel. Next, I want to give respect to Prince Natayo Ben Zavulam, Principal Ben Zavulam. Next, I want to give respect to my husband, Prince Yakayo Ben Zapor Ben Zavulam, as well as giving recognition to Prince Natayo Ben Levy. Okay, so my topic tonight is going to be taking you guys on a little bit of a road trip. You guys usually know when I come up here, I do stuff a little different. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you get something out of it. And pardon my nervousness. It doesn't matter how much you study. When, like my sister Chanel said last week, when you talk to Most High's people, you get a little bit of nervousness. Um, so basically, the theme of my lesson is going to be called the culture ride. Yes, I always have a theme. The culture ride. I'm going to take you on a road trip throughout the journey when we left Egypt. So, first and foremost, that I want to say before I get into the road trip is that um, Israel as a people, because of that slavery and slaveries after that and the slavery now, we have this slave mentality. And this mentality hinders us every day in our coming and our goings. I was doing a lot of reading and digging into Deuteronomy 28, and I was comparing it to 2018 life, present life. And a lot of the verses in there, just from verses 20 to 30 something, 40, like 42, it was all so relevant. And I wanted to really tie that in to my lesson tonight, but it would be kind of long. So I could do that another time with tying in Deuteronomy 28 with that. But it all comes into play to right before we left Egypt, the slavery that we was put on endures. What book? I have a book. Okay, so let's go. Let's start our road trip. I hope y'all have y'all snacks. I hope your seatbelt is fastened. Playlist is ready because we're going on a culture ride, and I hope you guys get something out of it. No worries. We're gonna be on the express track, and it's gonna be informative. And yeah. So to go along with my lesson, I also have a map. So my map is so that you guys can ride with me in my journey. So we're gonna see my map. Can you see it? See, it's delayed, so I can't even see if the map's up there. So this is my map, and in the map, we're going to go on a coach ride, and we're gonna start from Goshen. Goshen, which is in Egypt, which we left from a city. You blocking my face. We left from a city um, from Ramses. So let's just start this. So we start in Egypt in the land of Goshen. In Goshen, there was a small town named Ramesses. So the best way to break this down, yeah, you can move it. The best way to break this down is think of New York State, which is Egypt, and then think of New York City, which is Goshen, and then Ramses is Brooklyn. So we were in Ramses. We left on the 15th day of the first month, which is right after Pesach. So during this time, leading up to this, a lot of us know it, but we're just going to break it down really quickly. Of course, we have the birth of Moses, who was born in Goshen. They were killing all the males in Egypt around this time. So his mother, Jochebed, put him in a basket, put him down the river, and he was found by Pharaoh's daughter. Um, when he was found, she took him in like one of royalty, one of them. He grew up in the kingdom in Egypt, but he had a woke moment. He had a woke moment, and he found out who he really was. During that woke moment, he left Egypt. He went into Midian. He stayed with Jethro. He got a wife. He had his children, and then he came upon the burning bush. And this is when the Most High came to Moshe and spoke to him about his task at hand. His task at hand was to go back and free his people from under the reign of Pharaoh. Um, of course, when we have that, we have the 10 plagues. With the 10 plagues is basically putting the Egyptians and Moses through the fire so that they can know that God is real. So they know the Most High is the only God. There's nobody else. So 10 plagues. We'll break them down. I do this with the class downstairs. We have blood, we have frogs, lice, flies, murrain. Murrain was a disease on the cattle. Murrain, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and death of the firstborn. So with death of the firstborn, that's man and beast. So the first of every animal and the first of all the humans. So after that last plague is when Pharaoh said, "You can go." So now they going on a road trip. So from Goshen, they get to Sukkoth. Now, Sukkoth is very close. This is their first stop. This is, think of it as you going from New York City. We're from New York, and we want to go to New Jersey to get cheap gas. This is Sukkoth. This is how it wasn't that far away. So they stopped there with 600,000 men, not even including any women, not including any children. This was the shortest part of the journey. Still in Egypt, and then we reference how close it is as far as think of New York and New Jersey, but not to be confused with the Sukkoth that's located in the northern Samaria region close to the Jordan River. This Sukkoth we've heard about earlier on during Jacob's journey. With Jacob's journey when he reunited with Esau. He left where he was, and once they separated, he went to a land Sukkoth, but that's further north. So this is not the same Sukkoth. Also, Sukkoth was mentioned in the time of Gideon, when Gideon and his men were on their way to fight the Midianites, and they went through Sukkoth, and the elders refused to give them any type of food, give them type of anything. And Gideon, he's one of my favorites. He was always like the underdog. I think he's like the biblical underdog. The reason I say that is because the Most High always put him into these situations and made him go out and fight and defend his name and his people. And he really had weapons. Like he had, you know, shrubs and thorns and clay pots and this, that, and the third, because the Most High knew, of course, what he was doing when he put him out there. But um that's that's just one of my favorite stories. But Gideon also had time in Sukkoth as well. But this Sukkoth, like I said, is in Egypt, not the Sukkoth in close to northern Samaria. It was the first 300, first 300 war. Okay, so now from Sukkoth, We go to Mara. Now, a lot happens in between Sukkoth and Mara. So I just want to show you guys really quick. I had to do a lot of editing here because, of course, when you go online, a lot of things are a little, jagged and jaded. So I, doing my research, found that this map, even though it's the easiest to understand, that's why I printed it, but it wasn't as accurate with crossing the Red Sea. So we left Sukkot here, and this map had it going across Bitter Lakes, and that's not right. But we had to come down here, and this whole thing is the Red Sea. We crossed at the very top of it. Not taking away anything from part of the Red Sea, it's still water, but we didn't go through the middle or anything like that. We went right up here, and Mara is right on the other side. So I just wanted to clear that up of why is this random black line, so that's my editing. So here, Sukkot to Mara. So let's talk about between Sukkot and Mara. So we have Sukkot to Mara. Mara, which we know means bitter or bitterness, right? So roughly that was a rough 3-day journey. As we're journeying and we're walking with these 600,000 men and children and women and animals, cattle, everything, we're being guided by the Most High during the night with fire and during the day with a pillar of cloud. We went through the wilderness of the desert of Etham. We also encamped in Migdol. We encamped in Pi-Haroth, and that's where we caught up to the Red Sea. When we got to the Red Sea, I found it very interesting the way when the Most High spoke to Moshe, where and how he told him to position us. He told him to position us in the camp between, I'm gonna say this right, Baal Zephon and Pi-Hahiroth. Basically, that's a mountainous area. It's a valley in between mountains. And he told Moshe to position us there, pretty much because at this point now the Egyptians are on their way towards us. So there we're hidden. We're a little bit off the grid. But also have us facing Baal Zephon. Um, with that, reason why is because that was in the direction of the Red Sea. I took this as an interpretation of whenever the Most High say, all right, it's time, they're already in that direction, they could pick up and go. They'll just found it awesome of how specific the Most High gave those instructions. So from there, we crossed the Red Sea. Once we crossed the Red Sea, we went into Mara. Mara is right outside of the Red Sea. So we're going to discuss how far exactly the Egyptians came to get us. Like Most High hardened Pharaoh's heart again, and he literally, him and his men went 1,070 kilometers, which is roughly 665 miles. We don't know what that is? Okay, I'll tell you. So that's pretty much, think of walking from New York State to the middle of the state of Ohio, close to Indiana, like mid to end of Ohio. That's pretty much the journey that we went on when we left Egypt. That's 8 days roughly. Like it takes 8 days to walk 665 miles. So they followed us for 8 days before getting to the Red Sea. Like they were really pressed on getting us back. It's crazy. But it just shows the defiance. He was so mad. He was going to go that distance to get us back, to put us back under his reign, to put us through more agony and more deaths and captivity. So once we cross the tip of the Red Sea, now we just get ready to march forward. And from there, we go to, I'm going to say this right, Rephidim. There we go. Now, when we get to Rephidim, we walk through the wilderness of Sin. We're walking along the Red Sea. We had camped in Elim on the way. Elim is where they talk about the 12 wells and the 70 palm trees. In the wilderness of Sin, this is when it started with the Israelites complaining of being hungry. So think of this part of the road trip now is your kids is in the back. They want to go to the Maryland house. They got to use the bathroom. I want to send a button. Can we get out? This is this time in the trip, right? This is the annoying part of the trip when you're like, so now the Most High provided them with manna. We got manna every day. Ate till their bellies was full. Never complained. Now they bow their knees and they pray and they're back in one with the Most High. And this is just a repetitive thing that we've done throughout history, that we always turned our back on the Most High. And the Most High always, he's a jealous God. He has those same, we're made in the likeness of him. So all the emotions and things that we get, just imagine doing that. Him having those same things towards us because we're that child that never wants to pay attention. So during this time, he complained about manna. Okay, so he gets manna throughout the wilderness of sin on the way. All right, we arrive in Rephidim. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Where now this is one of the times where they complained about not having water. So Most High heard the people murmuring. He told Moshe, hit the rock. They gave him water. He gave them water. Excuse me, let me correct that. And you can find that, of course, in Exodus 17, verses 8 through 16. And it talks about the entire transaction there. Also, another occurrence that happened at this place was later on, the Israelites went to war with the Amalekites. And the war is led by Joshua. And this is where Moshe, every time his hands went up, Israelites was winning. When his hands fell down, Israelites was losing. So he became tired. He became weak. So Aaron and Hur had to sit him down on a rock and literally hold his hands up for the rest of the fight so that we could prevail against the Amalekites. During this time, of course, with the murmuring and the bickering and them being thirsty and, things of that nature, this name was renamed to Massa and Meribah. Massa meaning tests or testing, and Meribah is quarreling or arguing, murmuring. So next spot we go to. Now we're going from Rephidim to Mount Sinai. Now, Mount Sinai, this is where we got the 10 Commandments. This is where he went up there, and Israelites again felt that Moses turned their backs, the Most High turned his back on them, and they needed something. They needed something to worship. They needed something to feel relatable. So this is when they started with the golden calf. Moshe comes down from the mountain and sees all of the craziness that's going on, and he throws the commandments down, the tablets on the floor. So from Mount Sinai, we go to Hazeroth. Hazeroth. Okay. And this now, you can find this in Numbers. So right before heading into Hazeroth, the Israelites complained of having no meat. So Most High gave us manna, fine. Most High gave us water, good. Now there's no meat. It's just the complaining children in the back seat over and over again throughout this whole ride. They just can't stop talking and complaining, right? So Most High provides us with quail. So in Numbers 10:31, it says, now a wind went out from the Lord and drove quail in from the sea. It scattered them up 2 cubits deep all around the camp. So when I was trying to research, 2 cubits is roughly around 18 to 24 inches long. It was very vague, but just think of 18 to 24 inches long. And this went all around the camp. So they're not lined up. They're not walking in a straight line. They were probably piled up on top of each other, but this is a full circle around where they stayed, just filled up with quail for their desire. As far as the day's walk in any direction. So this is going anywhere you go, it's quail, it's quail, it's quail. All that day and night, and all the next day, the people went out and gathered quail. No one gathered less than 10 omas. So in my research, an oma is roughly around 220 liters. So if you have 10 times 220, they were eating. So then they spread them out all around the camp. But while the meat was still in their teeth, and before it can be consumed, the anger of the Most High burned against the people, and he struck them with a severe plague. Therefore, this place was named Kibroth Ha'ava, because they were buried for craving food. Pretty much the Most High struck the people for being greedy and for gluttony. You get everything that you want, he gives it to you, and you're shoving your face like an animal. You're acting like you have to get all of it before it's gone. And it just was displeasing in the Most High's eyes. So he's like, I have to teach him a lesson. You have to give him a makkah. So now you have a plague, stomach virus, whatever it is, for being greedy. So also in this place, Ha'aziroth, is when Aaron and Miriam spoke against Moses. So the Most High overheard their conversation of how he married outside of the nation and this and that, and it was displeasing in the Most High's eyes. Moshe was, his right hand, his that was, so for them to talk about him, it was very displeasing. So he gathered them all up. They confronted the situation, and Miriam was stricken with leprosy. She had to be shut out the camp 7 days. She was unclean. Throughout this time, the Israelites encamped there. They didn't move. So for 7 additional days from whenever we were already there, we've been sitting in this place waiting for Miriam to be clean from leprosy so that we can move on, because they wouldn't move on without her. So going from Ha'azeroth to Ezion Gibeah. So let me come back with my map. So let's just break down what we've done so far. We went to Mara, and we camped here in Elam briefly. We went to Rephidim, came to Mount Sinai, then we went up to Ha'aziroth. Now this is where we're leaving right now, and we're going to Ezion Gibeah. But if y'all can see, this is on the edge of the water. So Ezion Gibeah was pretty much a port. It was a port where a lot of transactions happened, where you did a lot of your business, do your exchanges, things of that nature. So this is where we are right now, which is very close to Edom. Okay. So in Ezion Gibeah, this is the part of the road trip where you're passing. Everyone's been on a road trip before where, oh, look at the cruise ships. Oh, the cruise ships are so big. Yeah. This is that part of the trip now, right? So everyone's, look out the window. Oh, look at that. Sure wish I was going where they was going. So Ezion Gibeah is a seaport where a lot of exchanges and business transactions occurred. They didn't stay long in this city. This city is where a lot of businesses happen. You refreshed yourself and you kept it moving. You got whatever it is that you needed and you kept it moving. They actually passed this place twice throughout their journey, and I'll show you the loop again when they were coming back around. Another important fact that I found out about this port is that it was also revisited by King Solomon and also by King Jehoshaphat. And during those times, King Solomon built a fleet of ships, and he was trying to go to Ophir to gather gold and silver and all such things. Here you can find this in 1 Kings 9, verse 26 on. He made his trip successfully. But then we get to King Jehoshaphat, and you already know how he got down. So, but before he could really even leave the dock, his ships were wrecked. You can find this story in 1 Kings 22:48. Another thing that I found out is that when you're reading in different contexts of these areas, talking about Ezion Gibeah, they'll use the word Tarshish. Now, we know Tarshish as the place where Jonah went, or, the time of Jonah. But in this reference, from what I found out, it really means at sea or to go to sea. So a lot of translations would say ships of Tarshish, fleet of ships of Tarshish. And that's pretty much basically saying ships at sea, ships to go to sea, of things of, So something I found that I wanted to share. But like I said, also we traveled back through the same area on our way going into Edom. So we'll get to that part soon. So this is now one of my favorite parts of the entire journey is when we were on our way to Kadesh. So located in between the wilderness of Zen. Don't confuse it with the wilderness of Sen that we already passed. This one is the wilderness of Zen with a Z. And in between the wilderness of Paran, previously known as the home of Abraham during his time where he encamped. This was one of the chief sites of this trip. Chief site meaning we spent the longest time in Kadesh. We spent the longest time here because we had issues with the Edomites not wanting to let us through, and there's a lot going on. So let me just tell you the information that I have. We spent the longest time out of all places before entering into Promised Land into Kadesh. Modern day, located in the valley of Wadi el-Ain, in the northeastern part of the Sinai Peninsula. Also during this time, Moses was denied by the Edomite king to pass through their trading lands to continue their journey. He was refused, so this was one of the reasons why they pitched here so long, because they had to find alternate routes. The trading route is called the King's Highway. I live on King's Highway, by the way. The King's Highway. The King's Highway was a trade route of vital importance in the ancient Near East, connecting Africa to Mesopotamia. It ran from Egypt across the Sinai Peninsula to Aqaba, from where it turned northward across Transjordan, leading to the Damascus and the Euphrates River. So this is another place where I'm going to show you guys. I don't have it dotted, but so you can get a visual. And there's other maps too that you can. I have a few maps in my book, but there's some, like, this is pretty much where we were trying to go all this time. So we were trying to get across here. The King's Highway is roughly right around here. And we were getting refused by the king of Edom. So we couldn't get over there. So one thing that made this so interesting to me is because it made me do some extra research throughout this actual culture ride. Throughout this culture ride, I was just pointing out the places and finding things out and, researching and, reading those chapters. But this part here took me, and I had actually reached out to my sister Lena in Ohio, and she brought up to me the same thing that I was even thinking. And as far as the Israelites always having issues and wars and fights and stuff with the Moabites and the Edomites and the Amalekites and the Ammonites all the time, all throughout history. It was like, something special. So with doing my little bit of research, don't be scared by the papers, it's not that much. I've just wrote a little something. Of course, we know those are the descendants of Esau and those are the descendants of Lot. So, in introducing the family of Esau, Moses includes the names and the derivations of Esau's wives. Esau took wives from the daughters of Canaan. Adah, which was from Hittites. Then she says Aholibah, which was the daughter of Anna, the daughter of Zebeon, which was a Hivite. Then he had another daughter, and she was a Hivite. All of these are Canaanite tribes, right? Forget where I'm going here. But now you see why you have the close ties between the Edomites, the Hivites, the Hittites, the Ishmaelites, the Ammonites, and all of those people, because those were descendants of Esau, right? Which are our cousins. We, of course, Jacob had the lineage. So we're cousins. But when you think about it, they always had this crazy, crazy history. And you always wonder why. I always wonder why. So then the verse comes to me where it says, Numbers 14:18, that the Lord is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but he by no means will clear the guilty, continuously clear the guilty, visiting the iniquities of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation. Now, we've heard this before, and we've heard this over and over, and I know some people probably don't really understand what that means. So, no, by all means, the son is not perishing or going through the punishment of the father's sins. But when you have those, I'm gonna give an example. We talked about it last week amongst the sisters because I was studying it. Let's say, for instance, and let's put it in 2018, you have a father and you have a grandfather, you have a son. By no means did they try to put, let's say, being a deadbeat dad on their children. But if this is what their children saw, then this is what their children know. So they're going to repeat what they know. And if you never tried to be a father, if you never tried to be there, then that's the iniquity in this instance. So this is what now the father would know. And now behind the father, there's a son. And now this is what the son is going to know. Or we can reference this to say with our men going to jail. And let's say if they all they know is my uncle's in jail, my father's in jail. This is all I know. That's the iniquities being visited from the father on the children. So with taking that, I've placed that with the Edomites and the Ammonites and the Amalekites and all of that stuff. Because all they know is what they were taught or what they grew up under, the traditions and the traits, and you know, you guys get what I'm saying, right? So this is, I feel, why we've had these issues with them, and it's just innate. It's just always there. It's like sometimes with you're born in racist families. It's kind of like we don't like white people. We don't like white people, and that's, I'm thinking that's kind of what this was. That's the way I took it. But then when I also brought this up, and the kids was downstairs with us, so Ashel, son of Chief Captain Hebron, he said, I feel it also could have come from when the Most High spoke to Rebecca and said that you have two nations in your womb, and the younger will serve the older will serve the younger. And we sat back and we kicked it and was like, yo, that makes a lot of sense. It don't have to necessarily be just that particular time with just Jacob and Esau. It could have just been, this is going to continuously happen. Like Esau is going to, the name of Esau is always going to continuously serve or go against the people of Jacob, the name of Jacob, the family of Jacob. So y'all get what I'm saying, right? But then it also brought me to Amos 1, verse 11. It says, for these three transgressions of Edom, even maybe four, I will not turn it away. I will not turn away its punishment, because he pursued his brother with a sword and cast off all pity. His anger tore perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. So even when you go into the book of Amos, and it continuously talks about the time of Esau and Jacob and his hate for his brother. And that's something that just would never go away. This is a perpetual punishment, perpetual wrath, a perpetual anger. And now it makes sense to me after doing my research of why we've always endured these issues with the Amalekites. And the reason it's so broad is because Esau had a lot of wives from different nations. So now it just makes his generations larger. So it just made it even more enemies. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So we're moving on. Now from Kadesh, we're still in Kadesh. This is where the Israelites again asked for water. They were thirsty for water. The Most High told Moshe to speak to the rock, and henceforth water will come. Moshe is just tired at this point. He's overwhelmed. He didn't speak to the rock, but he struck the rock twice and accompanied himself with the Most High, basically saying, we gave you this. And for that, Moshe could not enter into the land that he is bringing the people to and going through all of this to, because he did not sanctify the Most High's name. Next on this ride, we're almost done, guys. We go from Kadesh, we go to Mount Hor on the land of Edom. This is where Mount Hor is. This is where Aaron, the priest, died in the 40th year. Again, he's another one because he was accompanied with everything that happened with the water. He, another one, came down into the 40th year of this trip and died in Mount Hor at the age of 123. They went across from Kadesh. They went into Eden, into Moab, and encamped there for a while. They encamped in Mount Nebo, which was a lot of hills and a mass abundance of mountains near Jericho at the river Jordan. Here we camped out for a while before we moved on. So now in Mount Hor, we went into the mountain of Abarim, which is in the plains of Moab. We stayed in a lot of mountainous areas in this last leg of the trip. This is by the river Jordan, which is near Jericho. I've also learned that Abarim means a range or to pass over, to go through this range. Here, Moses viewed Canaan from on top of a mountain. The Most High told him to go up there, basically give him a little peek of what he's not going to be able to enter into. He went up to this mountain, he sat down, and that's where Moses died at 120 years old. Mount Nebo was approximately 2,330 feet above sea level, so it was a huge mountain. He was able to see the whole land, and that's where he lay to rest. So I'm going to stop my journey here. And the reason I'm going to stop my journey here is because I wanted to do a series of events because Erev Shabbat doesn't give me a whole lot of time. But the reason that I did this is because I honestly take from the time we left Egypt and all the research and the digging that I've done, the time that we left Egypt, I think the 10-day journey that turned into 40 years was to educate us, to mold us, to train us, to strengthen us, to guide us, to wake us up. And we never got it. We just never got it. And we still do that to this day. We only really want to pray when we're down, but when we're up, we're good. It's the same. Like if you look at these chapters, and I hate to call them stories, but if you look at these chapters in these books, it's repetitive and reflecting the same thing of today. And that's why every time I like to teach, I like to put things in a more common perspective so that people can understand. But again, a lot of people died. A lot of people suffered throughout this trip. And as we always say, it will only be a remnant. And I feel that it's the same situation with now. It will only be a remnant to go back. So basically, we need to all be focused on serving the Most High, doing right, staying on the path of righteousness, securing our righteousness with Him, and being good. That's all. So I hope you guys got something out of it. And Shabbat Shalom.